In Iraq, 2 explosive-laden drones have targeted Erbil International Airport, where U.S.-led coalition troops are stationed. There were no immediate reports of casualties. Kurdish security officials said the explosive landed outside the airport. A spokesperson for the semi-autonomous northern region dismissed reports the attack had impacted flights. He said the airport remained open and an investigation was ongoing by Kurdish authorities. The attack is the first following a 2-month hiatus in drone and rocket attacks to target the U.S. forces in Iraq. The U.S. blames Iran-backed militias for the attacks. For more on this, we are joined by Dr Arno Develay, international political analyst from Syria. Develay, thank you for your time. Now, Mr. Develay, the U.S. forces have been targeted again at Erbil International Airport. Was this a deliberate strike on the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks?
Well, one could analyze it like this. On the 20th anniversary of the 9/11 attacks, which basically led to an endless war strategy by the United States going after every country that they had decided to basically take out in order to engage in democracy building, quote unquote. It is a smashing reaction from the people in the region, the real sovereign forces in the region, that U.S. presence shall not be tolerated anymore.
Right. Now, Mr. Develay, more recently, the attacks have become more sophisticated, with the attackers using drones instead of Katyusha rockets. Who is behind these attacks?
The means being employed by the Iraqi resistance, most likely benefiting from Iranian expertise in improving their arsenal, but also improving the means of delivering new explosive devices with more precision and more lethal effect. The idea being that the U.S. forces must feel that their fortifications and/or bases are not out of reach from any attempt by the resistance to evict them or to send them a message that their presence is not wanted anymore.
Right. Dr. Develay, there are some 2,500 U.S. troops in Iraq apparently helping local forces counter what remains of the ISIS group. But why the terrorist attacks are rising in the country?
Well, that's a good question. Was that the U.S. And its allies are essentially propping up terrorist organizations, not only in Iraq, but in Syria as well. And it's been a recurring problem for the resistance forces, be they in Iraq or Syria, have managed to secure the borders between the two countries so as to prevent the flow of those elements from one side to the other. And obviously, the results have been very efficient. And the Americans are trying to reactivate those cells by any means necessary and using those already in place, so to speak, in order to intensify attacks and make themselves relevant again, should I say.
Right. Dr. Develay, the U.S. had announced to withdraw its forces from Iraq by the end of this year, but will continue to train the Iraqi military. Does Baghdad back presence of U.S. troops in the country or want complete pullout like Afghanistan?
Yes, you are referring to the recent visit of the Iraqi Prime Minister to Washington, whereupon a consensual decision was arrived at, which basically invoked a requalification of U.S. forces' role in Iraq as technical advisors. But the idea is this whole thing is cosmetics in nature, and that the U.S. has no intention to altogether pull all of its forces out, despite the Iraqi parliament voting in favor of such pullout. back in 2020, just after the assassination of Qasem Soleimani. So we are seeing now basically two factions, at least two factions within the Iraqi establishment. One that is bent on getting the U.S. troops out of Iraq, the sooner the better, and the other faction, which is more likely to somehow collaborate or at least feel the pressure of the United States in making sure that some U.S. presence remains in the country under whatever levelization you might want to invoke. For instance, some of the job descriptions have been requalified, and it is now question the issue of being more like NATO forces as opposed to purely U.S. forces. But it's all cosmetics. And the American, notwithstanding the requalifications and or relabelization of foreign presence in the country, are behind any attempt to prevent the Iraqi people from recovering their sovereignty.
Right. Dr. Arno Develay, thank you for speaking to Indus News.